There was a terrible tragedy in Trinity's life, which she was responsible for, and she knew that she would be paying for what she had done all her life. 15-year-old Trinity was in love with John, a guy from a simple family, and, as they say, with no prospects. She enjoyed his attention, gladly accepted bouquets, small gifts, and other signs of attention. He took her on his bike to the river, where she loved to swim and sunbathe, and in general he carried her in the literal and figurative sense in his arms. Trinity loved his wooing, and he was just happy to be near her, loving her with quivering adolescent love. Time passed. John was studying to become a welder, and Trinity enrolled at college and left for the big city. Every Saturday John came to see her. They had a long walk, then, late in the evening, the young man accompanied her to the dormitory and rushed to his town on the last train. It went on like that for 2 years. All this time Trinity hid from John that she really liked another rich and brash William. "Trinity, is it possible to be such a prude? What century do you live in?" William often joked at her, and she was always embarrassed and blushed. Maybe it was her modesty and inaccessibility that attracted William in her, and he switched all his attention to her. Trinity had resisted his advances for a long time, but eventually she finally gave in and began to date with him. John knew nothing and kept coming to her on Saturdays, brought little gifts, and naively considered Trinity his soon-to-be bride. One day, William invited Trinity to his birthday party. "The closest friends will be there," he said. "We'll celebrate at the country house. There's nature, a river, forest." All week Trinity had been preparing for the party, and when William arrived, she happily got into his car. They had hardly left when John came up to her dorm and, not having found his girlfriend there, began to wait patiently for her. But she spent the whole evening having fun, and at night William finally seduced her. He was very proud of the fact that he finally was able to conquer this inaccessible girl. Early in the morning, William took her home. On a bench near the entrance, she found a bouquet of her favourite daisies and a small wicker basket with bright, fragrant strawberries. Suddenly, a rush of disappointment overwhelmed Trinity. She had completely forgotten that yesterday was Saturday, and while she was having fun with William, John was sitting here waiting for her alone. The girl cried with remorse, but that did not stop her from continuing to meet William, and soon she realized with horror that she got pregnant. William was puzzled. Marriage was not in his plans, but at the same time he understood that his father was in too high a position to ruin his reputation. "Trinity, don't worry, we'll get married and I'll take care of you and our baby. By the way, tell me, who comes to see you on Saturdays?" "That's John, my friend. We grew up together." "Really? Well, then don't forget to invite your friend to our wedding." But Trinity was afraid to tell John. In fact, he hadn't come to see her in 3 weeks. She thought that he became offended, or maybe he met someone else, and it made her feel a little better. However, after a few days, as she stood outside the entrance, waiting for William, John came up to her. "Hello," he said quietly. Trinity turned around. "John, I wasn't expecting you." John grinned bitterly. "I know. You've changed a lot. You've become different, like a stranger." She stared into his faded eyes, then took his hand. "John, I need to tell you." Trinity didn't finish the sentence because William suddenly appeared. He powerfully hugged his bride and, looking dismissively at John, called him to their wedding. "By the way, congratulate me. I'm about to become a father, so will you come?" John nodded, turning very pale. He didn't look at Trinity, as if ashamed of what he had heard, and she flushed at William's cavalier rudeness. Trinity became William's wife a week later. The wedding was in full swing when the bride noticed one serious face among the joyful guests. John. So he did come. Why? She looked at him in pain, but in the meantime he had gone to the musicians, talked briefly about something, and suddenly, taking the microphone, greeted everyone, congratulated the newlyweds, and sang. The clean, deep voice of the simple-looking man astounded everyone. The noise stopped. John was singing a song about unrequited love from an old movie. Trinity did not know that he could sing so beautifully, but that was not what she was thinking about. Only now she realized that she had lost the greatest love of her life, and no one would love her like John did. After he finished his song, he left. Everything he had wanted to say, he said. 3 months passed. Trinity felt very bad during her pregnancy, and William completely stopped caring about her. Almost immediately after the wedding, he returned to his usual life, disappearing in the evenings and nights without paying any attention to his young wife. "William, what's going on? Why are you acting like this?" asked Trinity one morning after she had cried all night because of his absence. "I don't understand. What's your grievance? I don't owe you anything. I married you to cover your shame. What more do you want? Have a baby, raise him, and stay out of my private life. It's enough for you that I provide for you, and I'll provide for my future child too. That's it." Having said this, William left the room, slamming the door, and Trinity burst into tears again, cursing herself for her stupidity and credulity. The next day she felt ill and was hospitalized. A week later she asked to go home for a couple of hours to get some things. It was about 11 in the morning when she opened the door and stood on the doorstep. There were a lot of scattered male and female clothes in the hallway, and William and a strange woman were sleeping in her matrimonial bed. Trinity screamed in shock and immediately felt a sharp pain in the stomach. She settled slowly to the floor, no longer able to see how the lovers were rushing around the room frightened. Another whole week Trinity spent in the hospital. The pregnancy could not be saved. The woman did not want to see anyone. William came to her only once. He brought the divorce papers to sign. After she was discharged, Trinity returned to her hometown to recover and calm down. And she also really wanted to see John and apologize to him, to beg for forgiveness, to tell him that she had already been punished for everything. For 2 days Trinity sobbed in her mother's arms, and then she cleaned herself up and told that she wanted to see John. "Daughter, don't go, please," begged her mother, averting her eyes. "Leave it. What has been has passed." Trinity agreed only to reassure her mother, but after leaving the house she went straight to John. Soon she opened the familiar gate and knocked on the door. The door was opened by his mother, dressed in black clothes. "What are you here for?" she asked, looking at Trinity with an unseeing look. "Go away. Get out of here. It's all your fault. Get out." Trinity jumped out into the street and confronted the neighbor. The woman shook her head reproachfully. "You shouldn't have come here. John is gone. Got hit by a car. He told his mother he was going to your wedding to say goodbye to you. She begged him not to go, but she couldn't hold him back. John was on his way home when he was hit by a car on the highway. He died on your wedding day." Trinity's legs buckled and she fainted. 10 years passed. Trinity re-enrolled in college, graduated, then left for another state and got a job there. She was now a teacher and willingly worked with other people's children because she did not have her own as well as a family. Always serious, Trinity cheered up only with her students. But she did not let any of the adults into her life. Many people tried to make friends with her. Men asked her to date, but she didn't want anyone and refused all offers. One day, a boy, Alex, came to her class. He was new and the children disliked him right away because he was obviously poor. He was thin and short, and Trinity took him under her protector's patronage. She felt sorry for the kind, touching boy and did everything she could to make him feel comfortable at school. She found out from his personal file that he had no mother and lived with his father. Trinity wanted to see the boy's father and maybe offer to help, but he never came to the school meetings, and when she asked why, the boy always replied that the father was sick. So Trinity decided to go to their home and find out what was wrong. On Friday, when classes were over, she took Alex's hand and went with him. On the way, Alex told her that they rented a tiny apartment not far from the hospital and that Alex's father often went there for injections. When they entered the apartment, a man in a wheelchair appeared out of the kitchen. Trinity looked at him, wanted to say hello, and suddenly rushed to him, fell to his feet and sobbed. It was her John. "Alive? You're alive! John! Dear! Darling! My beloved! You are alive!" Alex looked at his father without understanding anything, and he was already hugging the sobbing teacher. Then they had a long talk, and John told her that he was really hit by a car, then spent a long time in the hospital. The coma lasted a few months. The man who hit him was very wealthy and paid for his treatment. John's life was saved, but he never fully recovered. "And Alex? Were you married?" asked Trinity. "You see, I was undergoing expensive treatment. One of the nurses thought I was wealthy. Anyway, when I had more or less recovered, she began to take very active care of me. I couldn't resist, and soon she was pregnant. Then she found out I was poor. She wanted to do an abortion, but it was too late. When Alex was 2 years old, she left us and went away. I have no idea where she is now. Now we live here because the rent is cheap and there's a good hospital nearby." John was quiet and then asked, "What made you think I'm dead?" "Your mother's neighbour told me," Trinity replied. "I get it. That's my godmother. I guess they didn't want you in my life again. They thought it was your fault. Don't blame them. My mother died last year and my godmother was gone even before that." "Oh, John, I am the one to blame, but if you let me, I'll try to make it up to you. John, honey, what a blessing that you've come alive." No one could recognize Trinity now. She was not walking, but flying, not sad, but laughing. Many times she went to the capital, negotiated treatment for John, opened an account in his name, not embarrassed to tell his story, and 3 years later she was happy and walking with a slightly limping husband and son Alex, who was wheeling a stroller with a little sister in front of him.